MSI offers a lot of laptops in their market, but this is probably one of their most powerful ones that they have. The first thing that I noticed when I pulled it right out of the box was how heavy it was. This thing comes in at 8.5 pounds, and I've never actually felt a laptop that was this heavy before. But with such a heavy build comes some serious heavy specs behind it. The Dominator Pro that I have has a 5th gen Intel i7 processor clocked at 2.7 GHz, which can easily be boosted to 3.5 gigs without any struggle really, and is supported by 16 gigs of RAM clocked at 1600 MHz. Now let me just say that these two together with a 256 gig solid state drive make this computer insanely fast. I've typically been getting boot up times anywhere from 4 to 7 seconds, and that's being a hard boot, not from asleep. So having something that can boot up that fast all the time is fantastic. My Dominator also comes with the NVIDIA GTX 970M, which is a variant of the 970, but is still a 3GB graphics card, and so far I haven't been able to bog it down, and I've been really happy with its performance. Now I've been playing a lot of Skyrim to see if I could bog it down at all, and I've been playing it on Ultra with a lot of mods, and it's never dipped below 60 frames a second. Now I also started playing Skyrim on the Xbox 360 with a 30 frame per second maximum and very slow load times on the 360. For anyone that's played it, they all know how slow it loads. Now comparatively to this, I can boot this game up in about 10 seconds from the start menu to hit continue and my character will be there, and that is unprecedented comparatively to what it would play on a console. Now for all you players that aren't doing games like Skyrim or Fallout or things of that nature and are more of the first-person shooter aspect, you will be happy to know that this laptop does support G-Sync. And for anybody that doesn't know what G-Sync is, it's basically the feature that allows your graphics card to sync with the monitor and have an instant refresh rate to whatever your graphics card is putting out. So if you're putting out 75 frames per second, it will immediately refresh on your monitor. With that being said, this ultimately minimizes the tearing and stuttering that would happen on your monitor and would ultimately make the gameplay experience extremely smooth, allowing for the best gameplay experience. Now with all that power in the video card, it does come at a pretty heavy cost on the battery. On average, I'm only getting about an hour and a half to 2 hours, if I'm lucky, of battery life without doing any gaming. When you're doing some serious heavy gaming on Ultra or anything like that, you're lucky to get maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And that's just because that the graphics card is so power demanding. Now one nice feature that comes with this laptop that is pretty essential to saving battery life is the ability to switch from the dedicated graphics card to the onboard graphics card. Now by doing this, you're ultimately going to gain about 3 hours of battery life. This is a really nice feature, but on the flip side, it does put much more load on the CPU, ultimately causing the boot up time to be a little bit slower, and the resolution seems to be a little funky at first, causing the output on the monitor to be a little bit different. It will eventually correct itself just by the time it figures out what resolution it needs to put out at, but it does take about 2 to 3 minutes longer to start up when you are using the CPU only instead of the GPU and the CPU. There are some other key factors that I probably should mention about this graphics card that I've encountered throughout my use of it. I'm not sure if it's a Windows 10 issue or if it's just an NVIDIA issue where they haven't patched their software yet, but I will occasionally get a notification at the bottom right corner of the screen saying that the driver for the NVIDIA card has crashed, but it'll say it has recovered, and it causes Windows 10 to start running a little funky. What I've noticed from all this is that the start bar will stop working sometimes. Cortana may trigger whenever she wants, regardless if it's the crash's fault or not, and then sometimes the computer will just reboot itself for no apparent reason. Now, all of these problems that I have encountered may or may not be related to the crash of the NVIDIA driver, but they are important to note. Now after the driver has crashed, I've noticed that most games on Steam don't like to start anymore after that, ultimately causing me to have to reboot the laptop, which isn't really a big problem because it can reboot quickly thanks to the solid state drive, but it is annoying that I have to reboot the system when it does happen. After the reboot is done, I've noticed that most games are locked at 30 frames per second, ultimately causing me to have to open the NVIDIA driver panel and reset the settings back to factory default. This will allow the games to go back to their max frame rates, but it's obnoxious that I even have to do that. What I've come to find that is if you do a full shutdown and then a hard boot, the NVIDIA driver will almost never crash. I think what ultimately causes this problem is that Windows 10 is just not apt enough yet to handle these drivers. I've seen other crashes happen on other Alienwares and other MSIs as well, and it's not just mine, and they all have different graphics cards than just mine, so I think that Windows 10 just hasn't been patched enough yet to ultimately deal with this. Moving on from the graphics card, this laptop also comes with hypercooling fans that work very well during long gaming sessions, and they aren't even that loud, which is a big plus as most gamers that have big tower rigs know their fans can get pretty obnoxious. Again, if you're going to be using these, I would suggest that you stay plugged in because of how much power you're really going to consume. Below the hypercooling button is the built-in capture card button, which initializes XSplit, a capture program that can support 60 frames per second, as well as external capture cards like the Elgato and allow for streaming on YouTube and Twitch. The software is pretty basic and it's easy to navigate through and allows for audio commentary from the onboard mic and webcam, as well as an external source, which is really convenient. The Dominator's webcam shoots at 720p and has an onboard stereo mic which has an adequate quality. It's clear enough for streaming, but is extremely sensitive, and if you're going to be streaming a game from the laptop that requires a lot of keyboard usage, it will be picked up and can become quite annoying throughout the recording. I don't think this will be a problem for most gamers, only because most gamers that are streaming now from a computer are using a headset, so all of the audio will be diverted to the mic of the headset rather than the onboard mic of the laptop, which is nice. The last button that you see on this laptop is for the SteelSeries keyboard. What's really cool about this keyboard is that it's fully customizable. You can set any color you want, up to 4 different presets, so you can switch readily between them and then have multiple different layers of each color. The last unique features that I'm going to talk about are the speakers that are made by Dyna Audio. These speakers have a very full sound and a very loud sound. This laptop even has a built-in subwoofer that allows you to get some decent low end to resonate through the body so it's not so thin and tinny, which is really nice. Again, if you're going to be gaming, they will do just fine, but I assume that most gamers will have a headset with them anyways. This Dominator also comes with a 17.3-inch Full HD screen, so your standard 1920 by 1080p or 16 by 9 ratio. It also comes with a 1TB hard drive clocked at 7200 RPM and 6 USB 3.1 ports, which allow for gigabit transfer speeds up to 10 gigabits per second. On the left side of the computer, we have 4 audio ports next to the 4 USB ports, which allow for audio in and audio out, as well as a card reader, which is nice for uploading pictures and videos. And on the back, you can see that there's an HDMI out, 2 mini DisplayPort outs, which you can get a mini DisplayPort to full DisplayPort or mini DisplayPort to many conversions, whatever you want to use really. And then also just your standard Ethernet port and a charging port. Lastly, one of the coolest features that this computer has to offer, and probably one of my favorites, is its ability to be able to have multiple matrixed displays, which is awesome for first-person shooters because you can have an extremely wide display, and it really gives you an edge over other players who don't have this feature.